More now on the pressure on the government to change course on its plans to cut tax credits. I'm joined by Sam Bowman, who's Deputy Director of the Adam Smith Institute. Part of the government strategy, they say, is to make work pay. Does this fit into that strategy?
It really doesn't, and I think that's why we're seeing such a huge backlash from very surprising quarters. People like us at the Adam Smith Institute, within the Cabinet. Now we've heard that today that 3 of Osborne's colleagues have condemned these or have said that he really needs to think about rethinking it. The problem with this is not just that it's going to hurt people, but that it undermines the government's entire narrative up until this point, and it undermines all of the other cuts that they've made, all of the other rationale for the universal credit and so on, and it goes against everything they've done so far, and I think that's a huge problem for the Chancellor.
It's not often that the Adam Smith Institute, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell agree about something, but you agree about this, actually, from completely different perspectives.
Well, absolutely. We think the tax credits are they're very flawed. The way they're implemented is very complex, and it's a very difficult system to navigate if you're on low income. But the principle behind them is sound. There are lots of people who are low skilled. They will find it very difficult to move up the income bracket in their lifetimes, and they're struggling. Tax credits, unlike other forms of welfare, encourage those people into work. They top up their incomes when they're in work. And contrary to what the government has claimed, there's virtually no evidence at all that tax credits are a subsidy to employers. The evidence just isn't there.
But let me put it the other way. There's a big pot of money there that the government feels it needs for its broader economic strategy, and that is clearly one big part of it, isn't it?
It's true, but there are many other things that the government could cut instead. The pensions triple lock, I think, is a real farce at this point. We're looking at 0% inflation, and yet pensions will have to go up by at least 2% in real terms this year. So that means while people who are working are on £15,000 a year, for example, a household, they'll lose £1,500 under these cuts. A pensioner couple on £15,000 a year will be gaining £300 a year. So it's not that, that there's absolutely nowhere else to cut. It's that politically it's not expedient for the Chancellor to cut pensions and things like that.
Is there any wiggle room at all? I mean, Nicky Morgan has been suggesting, one of the cabinet ministers, that the Chancellor is in listening mode. But David Cameron seems to have fixed himself really firmly behind this policy. Are there other things they could do? Raising tax thresholds, for example. Is that something you're in favour of?
Yes. One of the problems is that raising the income tax threshold is already quite high, and the earners that will be affected by the tax credit cuts possibly don't earn enough that they're paying tax anyway. National insurance, however, is one area where we could see tax cuts like that. That could relieve some of the burden, but still we're looking at people who are earning, if they're on part-time work, if they're on very low wages, they could be earning already very, very low, but they could be below the national insurance threshold. So even there, where I think, yes, it would be good, yes, it would mitigate some of the cuts, it won't do it for the people on the lowest incomes, who we should be really worried about and really trying to help here.
Very interesting. Sam, thanks for coming. Sam Bowman there. Now, a newlywed couple from County Down in Northern Ireland have died while on honeymoon in South Africa. John Rogers, who is 28, and his 26-year-old wife Lynette are believed to have drowned in rough seas. Our correspondent Richard Lister has more.